What's up, everybody? So for today's video, we're gonna be checking out John Wick Chapter 4, a mostly excellent final. So, yeah, man. This is from the Critical Drinker, and I've actually got introduced to this dude from Tyrone Magnus, from watching Tyrone Magnus, and this dude's pretty funny, man. So let's just see what he has to say about John Wick Chapter 4. By the way, I've seen the movie. If you guys want to check out my movie review, it's in the link in the description below. Anyways, man, let's just check this shit out. Ready? 3, 2, 1, boom.
The John Wick series is one of the most interesting franchises to come out of the past 10 years, especially because, let's be honest here, not many people saw it coming. The original from 2014 was a low-budget action flick when all anyone was making at the time were tentpole superhero movies. It had an inexperienced director and a middle-aged action star who hadn't had a hit movie in years. On paper, it should have been just another cheap, disposable, low-effort dumpster fire that went straight to Blu-ray, probably starring Nick Cage or Bruce Willis. Even the studio didn't believe in it, almost pulling the funding literally weeks before principal photography was due to start. But somehow the planets aligned and all the right people came together to deliver one of the best action films of the past 20 years, reinvigorating a genre that had run out of energy and ideas and resurrecting the career of Keanu Reeves. It was cool and brooding and violent, delivering impressive long-take action sequences that laughed in the face of bigger budget productions, set up a rich criminal underworld of elaborate rules and rituals, and forged one of the coolest and most iconic characters of the past decades. The sequel delivered more of the same, only bigger and more refined, doubling the box office haul of its predecessor and cementing John Wick as a viable long-term franchise, while the third movie amped everything up to 11 and went so far over the top that it became almost a parody of itself. But again, the box office haul was enormous, which left the filmmakers at a bit of a crossroads. Do you keep chasing bigger and bigger returns at the expense of quality and artistic integrity, or do you bow out while you're still on top? Well, the answer comes in the form of John Wick Chapter 4, a movie that could well be Mr. Wick's final outing. Or not, if the latest headlines are to be believed. Anyway, you're not here for box office speculation, so don your bulletproof business suits and let's do this. The film picks up sometime after the events of the third movie. John Wick's now recovering from being shot multiple times at close range and thrown off the roof of a 6-story building, because those are definitely the kinds of injuries that you can bounce back from.
You serious?
Anyway, the problem is that he's still excommunicated from the High Table, the governing body that oversees assassins all over the world. So naturally, he does what John Wick does best, and murders the leader of the High Table. But all actions have consequences, and the High Table send one of their best men, the Marquis de Gramont, to take John down for good. On the plus side, Winston's able to fill in John on an ancient rule that he can use to his advantage. If he challenges the Marquis to a one-on-one duel and wins, his excommunication will be lifted and his freedom restored. Wow, that's lucky. It's a shame that he never told him about that rule in the previous movie, because it would have been pretty fucking useful. The only problem is that in order to challenge the Marquis, he needs a major crime family to sponsor him. So he goes back to the Ruska Roma syndicate and asks them to sponsor him, but they'll only do it if he kills the man who killed their former leader. Ugh. So basically you can break down his objectives like this. Kill the boss, get sponsored, challenge the Marquis, fight his way to the site of the duel, unlock the final boss battle and win the game.
Flawless victory.
Complicating things even further are a bounty hunter named Mr. Nobody and a former friend named Kane who's been blackmailed into hunting him. But will John Wick be able to fight his way through to the end and win his freedom, or will this be his last stand? If I had to sum up John Wick 4 in one sentence, I'd say it's the perfect adaptation of a video game that never got made. The story structure is exactly the kind of mission-based objective system that you'd find in a game, always keeping the action moving from one objective to the next and culminating in a series of big blowout action scenes linked together by quest-giving characters who point you to the next clue and demand something before helping you progress. And all of this leading into a one-on-one confrontation with the final boss. There's definitely good and bad aspects to this. On the plus side, the pacing rarely drags because the action almost never lets up. The script is always hurtling towards the next objective or the next big confrontation without getting hung up on pesky little details like logic or plot coherence. And don't worry, I'll talk more about that soon enough. One minute John's in Osaka, the next he's in New York, then Berlin, then Paris. It's basically a whistle-stop tour of every cool action movie backdrop that you've always wanted to see. The cast are all on top form here. Keanu Reeves proves once again that he must be some kind of immortal vampire. Despite pushing 60, he's still able to move and fight like a much younger man, and he's still got the kind of effortless cool that made him so compelling in the first film.
Gosh.
God only knows
Dude, I
what would
remember
happen
that
if him
scene,
and
bro.
Tom Cruise ever
Jumps
appeared in
out
the
of the
same
fucking
movie.
window.
The world would probably melt down from that much star power. Ian McShane is always
He must
awesome to
have had
watch
a
and
break
slips
to a
into the
fucking
role of
bone or
Winston like a
something.
comfortable old pair of boots, which is kind of what his face looks like at this point. But by far the standout performance comes from Donnie Yen, who's restrained, clinical and brutally efficient as Kane, a former assassin brought out of retirement and reluctantly forced to hunt down John. Two friends pitted against each other, knowing that only one of them can walk away from it. Damn, remember when movies had men act like actual men instead of neurotic teenage girls? Well, this movie does. Obviously, Donnie's a veteran of the Hong Kong action scene, so he can kick
That's
ass with the
great.
best of them, and his chemistry with Reeves is a joy to watch. Probably the only weak point in casting terms is Bill Skarsgård as the Marquis. It's not that he turns in a bad performance or anything, it's just that the character isn't all that memorable as an antagonist. He's mostly all bark and no bite, preferring to let others do his fighting for him, and the script doesn't really give him much to do except stand around in a series of ridiculously lavish outfits looking cool. Visually, the film's fantastic, taking us from ultra-modern luxury hotels to grungy industrial German nightclubs to lavish European palaces and towering Gothic churches. It's all very cool and stylish, and I can't fault the movie's efforts to give us an epic globe-trotting adventure. The world of the High Table is one of elaborate rituals and aristocratic titles, and it's all so far removed from that stripped-back, rough-and-ready first movie that it becomes kind of hard to reconcile the two after a while. Which brings me neatly along to the critical part of my review, dear viewer. See, as much as the video game style of screenwriting helps to keep the plot moving forward, it also brings its share of problems if you start thinking about it too much. The world building around the High Table, with all of their lore and ancient rituals, is all very nice, but there's a big difference between gradually learning more about a mysterious organisation and just straight up inventing new rules to do what the plot needs to do, and I think John Wick 4 veers very much on the wrong side of that line. Then there's the stupid bulletproof suits that basically turn people into walking battle tanks, able to shrug off everything from small arms fire to high-speed impacts. I'm not kidding, in the course of this single movie, John Wick gets hit by at least 6 cars at high speed, thrown down 222 steps, stabbed multiple times, thrown off a 50-foot ledge onto a concrete floor while hitting a steel girder on the way down, shot 3 times without protection, and has more ammunition hurled at him than the fucking Ukrainian army. And well, it all becomes a little bit much after a while.
Damn,
If you want
bro.
to set your movie in a hyper-exaggerated
No
version
shit.
of reality with its own rules of what humans can do and survive, then that's just fine with me. But the thing is, you need to stick to those rules once you've established them. And the John Wick movies have been gradually bending those rules more and more with each installment. The first film was actually pretty grounded about what people could do. John Wick took serious damage from all of his fighting, and generally it felt like this was all meant to be taking place in a somewhat real world. Now, just like in video games, the important characters all have superhuman strength, endurance and healing factors, and nobody else even stands a chance against them. Seriously, you have to question why random street punks would even consider taking on a guy like John Wick after like 4 movies, no matter how big the bounty might be on his heads. Yeah, the other 500 guys that tried it might have died, but I'm feeling lucky tonight. It's like self-preservation just isn't a thing in this universe. Some of the combat scenes are undeniably impressive, especially an overhead pan and shot of a house battle from room to room, and you've got to respect the sheer amount of work that must have gone into them. That being said, others go on for so long that they actually become kind of tedious after a while, which I know sounds weird coming from a fan of action movies, but damn man, even I can only watch Keanu Reeves doing the same 3 or 4 close combat moves over and over again before it starts to get exhausting. Also, I don't care how into music you are, you're never going to convince me that people in a nightclub will just carry on dancing without a care in the world while a literal gun battle tears through the place. The problem with a film series predicated on its technically challenging fight scenes is that every new movie is under pressure to top what came before it, but simply adding more of the same stuff doesn't necessarily make it better. If anything, it actually puts the quality at risk by forcing the overworked crew to cut corners. I found myself noticing quite a few scenes where actors missed their marks, hit targets they weren't supposed to be aiming at, and stuntmen who had to hold back and wait for Keanu to get into position. And believe me, I don't exactly have a keen eye for this sort of thing either. All of this is to say that while I absolutely enjoyed John Wick 4 and consider it a kick-ass action movie, I think in some ways the franchise has been a victim of its own success over the years, pushed to the limits of its premise by the endless demand to go bigger and louder and better. And I can't shake the feeling that this movie could have benefited from scaling back a little in some areas, focusing more on innovation and quality control rather than style and spectacle. But hey, I'll take this over the endless, soulless CGI shitfest we're subjected to on an almost weekly basis now. What's interesting though is that the movie is absolutely dominating at the box office, performing way better than the studio expected, and coming at a time when the tired and played out superhero genre seems to be faltering and failing. It seems like we might just be witnessing the beginning of a cultural shift in Hollywood, a pivot back towards smaller, more mature and more easily produced action movies that the John Wick series helped to revive. And if that's the case, then fuck it, I'm all in. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
Damn, bro. It makes you kind of think, bro, about the whole John Wick franchise, bro. Like, I can tell, like, in the first movie that they really try to make it as realistic as possible. And then just, like, by the fourth movie, man, he's, like, jumping out of fucking, like, 18-story windows onto a fucking car, right? Like, bro, he should have broken either his rib, leg, or neck. Like, come on, bro. You ain't gonna tell me this motherfucker did not break anything, bro. But anyways, man, I don't know, man. I feel like they should make a fifth one. You know, I feel like they should. I don't know how they're gonna do it, though, but fuck it, man. I feel like they should. Anyways, man, if you guys like my reaction, give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace out, motherfuckers.